This is Backseat Drivers from Beyond the Stars. I had to insert this scene in case anybody ever wonders who sees this. The show was actually short. It was a half hour, and we ended up shipping it short, and I believe that we were going to fill it up with 3D, and it never happened in the end. So we had a minute or two I had to fill up, and this was my solution. I always wanted scenes like this. I wanted these longer establishing shots, something a little bit more subtle, and just free of dialogue or free of thought, pretty much. You just get to absorb graphics. So here we go. We got an answer. And it really goes on. This is, I'd say that's a little bit excessive. This show was done by Kyle Menke and Sean Murray as board artists. And this is second season, the beginning of second season here. This show really took off. Everybody was getting better at their game. Everybody got better at drawing the characters. Everybody got better at staging. And everybody on the art crew just was doing way, way better. I started paying more attention to the timing and getting it in order. Get it a bit snappier than it was. So this episode really turned out nice. The script was a little bit criticized by some people, but I thought it was pretty good. It tends to have a lot packed into it, with Zim just dealing with his house and with the tallest and everything. But it's a great way to come into a season and introduce new viewers basically to the series, because you get to meet Zim, you get to meet the tallest, you get to see the entire world pretty much. I can't remember if we see Gaz in this episode, but you see just about everything else in Zim's world except maybe the school. And I think it succeeded there. Plus there's a lot of fun just running around. It was a fairly simple idea with a lot of nice little bits thrown in to give it business. I believe this sequence was taken from it was actually a joke played off of the 13th episode, Battle of the Planets, because Zim sat there without the screen for a while, without the toss on the screen, just static, and redid the joke with it longer and more appropriate this time. Really well done show. Beautiful colors. And the detail started to come out a bit more in this show, but it didn't get too excessive yet. The establishing of that creature is a little bit scant. I was always hoping that we would have established it a bit more, and I did. I actually added a bit after the boards were done, but it still could have used a bit more. Gur is great in this episode. We had a lot of 3D. Since this was a second season kickoff, which at this time, late 2002, it still hasn't shown. I'm not too sure when it will show. It was supposed to be sort of an extravaganza. And I think Jonah and myself, we both believe that this is probably the best looking Zim show that ever was made. And the script is pretty good. It's not a bad show in any way. This was Dib's new house. The house was designed with this electronic fence, I think, for the second season. You can see it. Membrane has pants in this episode. Sometimes you would get Membrane without pants. He was supposed to have gray or black pants underneath that coat. Sometimes those pants just weren't in the shots, and he ended up looking like a child molester. Well, you can see the power in the drawings. We had a lot more upshots and a lot more blocking with foreground elements and such. Everybody really liked the humor with Gaz being held. Occasionally that was done like in the other season, but used it again and again. It was so fun to see Membrane treat his kids as if they were dolls or action figures. Some people have wondered also if Membrane created the kids or if they're actually his children. Never got an answer to that yet. This originally was it was sort of a muddled retake on what happened in TAC. In TAC, the episode of TAC, there was a point where Dib actually attached a bug to Zim's counter in his control room or whatever downstairs, where they're looking at TAC's plan on the monitor. The funny thing was that in the second season, we were supposed to come back to it and show Dib attaching the bug, but it was supposed to be a totally different thing. It had no relationship, so it was just supposed to be a joke on the fans. Unfortunately, we never attached that bug in the first season. So It sort of becomes confusing. You're like, when was this or where was this? I like that little drawing of Dib up on the wall. I can't remember that doo 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 doo. That was a joke that I can't remember what was supposed to be happening there. It ended up being that where Zim's out of his seat and dives into his seat. We used to have a lot of problems in the show. You see that sign that said "Remote Link Enabled." Always had a big problem with New York and Nickelodeon with written signs. First off, it was bad for a written sign is bad for international purposes. You know, you can't. It's in English, so if you suddenly are translating into German or Japanese or something like that, it becomes a hindrance to the show or the possibility of selling the show or having overseas people understand the show. And then, of course, we always had text flopping around on screen. It was going too quick, so we always had to slow down for our text so that people could read it. This story point was a little bit weak. I don't know if this plays off to the viewers. It was supposed to be he's supposed to be a prisoner, Nurkin prisoner that Zim gets to talk to. Yeah, this scene also difficult to do because of the graphics floating over Zim. We had a large problem dealing with the timers on that. Claimed that it was almost impossible to animate it or something, but it was a very simple effect and well laid out, and it worked. This is Kyle Menke's little action sequence of Dib floating down this line. Very complex scene. Tax Ship was becoming a bigger member of the cast throughout this whole second season, and you can see it starts to come in here. It crashed in the last episode before this in front of Dib's house. Now it starts to develop itself, and it actually gets a personality in a later episode, Dib Ship. Really well drawn. Still a great looking show, and all this 3D was incredible too. Really excellent job done by I believe it was Hansy did a lot of it. Hansy and his crew. I don't think John Soar was working too much on our 3D at this point. He originally kicked off our 3D, but he started to do all sorts of busy work for New York and their 3D digital department. But this series, or this episode of the series, was really lush with 3D. All those little monitors are 3D. Everything, you know, the spaceship out there, space is 3D. These aliens, I believe, were all designed by, were mostly all designed by Aaron Alexovich, although I think Jonan designed a couple of these. And I think they held up better, these designs, than the Hobo 13 aliens. Very Jonan-esque. There you go, some interesting multi-level work. A lot of levels going on, a lot of perspective and depth in this episode. Really looked nice. Probably the closest thing to what I intentioned for the series visually, film-wise. This first half of this show. And I think in terms of drawing, this is the closest that it got for Jonan, too. I think he's very happy with the style of the characters and the cleanup and everything. This is, again, is a Chow Lee Han episode, this first half. He does very clean animation.